These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
It's very important to prepare before a storm gets here. That's not the time to start making a plan. Right now is the time to know what your risk is, what your plans are for your family, how to stay informed, and how to get involved and volunteer so that you can help your community before the storm gets here. Take preparedness seriously, as in these past couple years, we never know how a disaster will evolve. If you wait till the last minute, that's when everybody's in there wanting to get those last little bit of supplies. Take your time and making sure that you have all the exact items that you need to put in your emergency kit. That should be able to support you for up to at least 7 days. It's important to know your evacuation zone. If we get into a situation where a decision has to be made that you're in danger from the surge coming in that's created by a storm event, that you know when your zone is called that it's time for you to go. Preparedness, preparedness, preparedness. You never know what the hazard is going to be, what the event is going to be, but if you take those basic steps that we talked about, it can apply to any hazard that impacts Hillsborough County, and your family will stay safe.
Good morning and welcome to the Transportation Planning Organization meeting. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Gail. Could we have a roll call for the quorum, please? Thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
Here.
Mayor Ross?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Wastel?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Kemp is excused. Councilmember Clendenin? Councilmember Hurtak?
Here.
Councilmember Maniscalco?
Here.
Mayor Kilton? School Board Member Patricia Rendon?
Here.
Charles Klug?
Here.
Gina Dew?
Here.
Greg Slater?
Here.
Gary Hartfield is also excused. Planning Commissioner Joseph? We do have an in-person quorum.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes for October 30th, 2024? Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? That motion is carried. Okay. We'll move right into public comments. We have two speakers. Deborah Ames, she virtual. County staff, is Deborah on the line?
She's not on, she's not checked in.
Okay. Joe Citro? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. If I may speak to you and through you to the board members, good morning, board members. Joseph Citro, 33611 for the records. I cannot express how disappointed I was at the TIP meeting and how the voting went. However, I am more disappointed at two members that might have made the vote a little different that weren't in attendance. By simply following the rules, if they were given enough notice, they could have voted remotely. That is a disappointment not only to myself, but to other people that were hoping the vote went the other way. That is all I have to say this morning. Thank you,
Thank you
board
so much for your kind comments. Okay, so our next item, committee reports and advance comments. Rick Fernandez, good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Computer seems a little squirrely today, so hopefully it
Rick, can
doesn't
you turn your
reflect
volume
your
up a little bit? Or county staff, can you turn our volume up? Thank you.
How are we doing on sound check now?
It's much better.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the support. For the record, my name's Rick Fernandez. I'm chair of your CAC. I'm here today to provide the report of our meeting, which was held on Monday evening, November 4th. We advanced our meeting date in order to accommodate your meeting today, so we'd be able to give you our usual input. We convened at 6 p.m. We did manage to have an in-person forum. There were two action items presented to the CAC. One is the 2024 TIP priority list amendment, and the other is the TIP amendments for HART route restoration planning grant and HART emergency relief related to Hurricane Ian. TPO staff presented on the TIP priority list amendment, followed by proposed program changes. The CAC discussed the priority list changes, which reflect the CAC's action earlier this year. I appreciate that. The CAC motion recommending the TPO board approve the amended list of priority projects passed unanimously. CAC members further discussed the proposed program changes and appreciated the clarity the changes would provide. Members noted that they don't like the grouping of projects by category, appreciate seeing what was previously funded, and are interested in project delivery pathways. TPO staff presented the second action item, which was the TIP amendments for the HART route restoration planning grant and HART emergency relief Hurricane Ian. The CAC motion recommending the TPO board approve these amendments to the FY 25 through 29 TIP passed unanimously. The CAC also received a presentation on the Tampa International Airport Master Plan update. Gina Du was kind enough to attend virtually to provide that update herself. Members were appreciative of the update and are interested in future topics related to the technology and how the airport can be served by public transportation. The CAC meeting in December will be held jointly with the TAC on Wednesday, December 4 at 12 p.m. That's it for me. I respectfully submit. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. Advanced comments, Harmony McGee. Good morning.
Good morning, Harmony McGee, TPO staff. Regarding today's action items, the Technical Advisory Committee recommended the amended 2025 list of priority projects to be accepted by the TPO board. Some discussion did arise regarding the recent hurricanes and the need to prioritize the state of good repair and resilience. Additionally, committee members highlighted how safety needs to be prioritized, emphasizing the TPO's commitment to Vision Zero and pedestrian safety. The Livable Roadways Committee will receive this item as a status report in their upcoming meeting. The Technical Advisory Committee also recommended that the TPO board approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2025 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program. Prior to approval, committee members inquired about reductions to HART's operating budget, which has led to reductions in service frequency on some routes. The committee members asked if the funding reductions were attributable to overall cuts to HART's budget or resulting from the pandemic. TPO staff clarified that both Mission Max and COVID restrictions contributed to the reduced service frequency. Comments were also received via email and social media. Michael Marino, on behalf of the West Shore Alliance, provided a letter of support for the 2024 priority list amendment and program changes. The letter reads as follows. Dear Chair Myers, the West Shore Alliance encourages the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization Board to support both action items in your November meeting. We are especially in support of the priority list amendments and proposed program changes and their potential impact for the West Shore District and Hillsborough County. The timing is right to advance the airport to downtown premium transit plan. The West Shore interchange and future work on Interstate 275 will preserve a dedicated right-of-way for transit from the Hillsborough River to at least Lois Avenue. It is our belief that the current configuration of the express lanes in this corridor would also allow for a bus to leave the right-of-way and continue over the new Howard Franklin Bridge without conflicts or a need for a new bridge structure. This concept would be an interim step in our vision for extending the airport's Sky Connect people mover from Tampa International Airport to the FDOT-owned intermodal site at West Cypress Street and North Trask Street. Our 2018 West Shore Transportation Action Plan envisions this as a concept to finally bring premium transit service into the West Shore District. The airport West Shore downtown connection needs to be facilitated by other concepts on your agenda. Extending the streetcar north allows for a direct connection between the streetcar and an airport/West Shore to downtown service. We must connect Brightline to TPA via transit to match the services provided in Miami and Orlando that allows for airport passengers to access the Brightline terminal via direct pedestrian or transit access. Our efforts to provide seamless connections for travelers will impact our ability to attract international and cross-country flights. Plus, there needs to be better services for the hundreds of TPA-based workers who rely on transit to get to work. The east-west portion of the CSX line could be used to support services in Northwest Hillsborough County. In the 1980s, the West Shore Alliance supported a concept that would have used part of the CX line for an extension to run along Air Cargo Road to a transit center in West Shore. The West Shore interchange should be completed in the early 2030s, considering the 275 corridor and the Veterans Expressway corridor. It is not inconceivable to believe that we have maximized the available space for those corridors. The time is right to start planning for what is next. West Shore is becoming a premier mixed-use district, but we do not have a premier transportation system. Sidewalks randomly stop, streets fall off into ditches, and we have little to no transit service. FDOT's plans for the West Shore interchange will address many service street issues and provide a street grid that is necessary for transit and pedestrian circulation. But without a plan from you on transit, there will not be a project coming down the line. As we have done for 41 years, we look forward to working with our elected leaders and transportation planners to improve all modes of transportation in West Shore. Our current and future business and residents will need it. Sincerely, Michael Marino. Late comments were also emailed to the TPO regarding the LRTP public hearing, expressing opposition to the widening of I-275, disappointment in the Florida Department of Transportation's role in implementing projects that have negative impacts on local communities, and advocacy for more accessible modes of transportation, such as biking and public transportation. Rick Fernandez commented on Facebook, expressing his disappointment that not all TPO board members attended the LRTP public hearing. Michelle Kriz shared concerns, noting that despite community efforts to voice opposition, the TPO board's vote did not reflect this sentiment on roadway widenings. She also tagged the TPO in photos showing public transit options in other countries and graphics explaining why road widening is not a sustainable solution for reducing congestion. This concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Okay. Move right into our consent agenda. Could we have a motion, please? Have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposers? Yes. That motion is carried. Move right into our action items. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, TPO Board. Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff, and I have a presentation for you on the 2024 list of priority projects and proposed program changes. Chair, if it's okay with you, this is a two-part presentation, the first of which requires the board's action, and then the second part is for information. So if it's okay if I pause for your discussion and action and then resume afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. So as you'll recall from a previous meeting, you directed TPO staff to amend the priority list to reflect the Citizens Advisory Committee's recommendations, as well as fix the ties that were present in the priority list. So this is a list of those 4 projects that have been now elevated in their respective categories in the priority list. That's airport to downtown premium transit, TCO streetcar extension, the Brightline multimodal connections. They are now the top 3 priorities within the real choices when not driving section of the priority list. And then the HART CSX study is the very top priority under major projects. We followed our public participation requirements, and 3 weeks prior to this meeting, produced a social media article, social media post, and web page. So the recommended action for you today is to consider accepting the amended 2024 list of priority projects.
Okay. Board discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposers? That motion is carried. Continue on. Thank you.
The second part of the presentation is to solicit your feedback on some proposed program changes to the way the priority list is developed. In my somewhat biased opinion, I feel the priority list is probably the most important, or one of the most important things that the TPO board does every year. It's where you itemize your priorities, there's funding allocated to that, but probably even greater, there is strength in an outward documentation of what this board feels are its priorities. Over the years, it's become a little bit bloated. Maybe the meetings have been a little bit contentious, and I think there's some real opportunities to optimize. So before jumping into the recommendations, I wanted to provide a little bit of context. So we are the Transportation Planning Organization. We spend a lot of time planning, but the way MPOs are set up in federal law, there are implementation dollars, and those are reflected in the Transportation Improvement Program. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where projects get implemented. And the priority list is the mechanism that bridges those things from planning to implementation. There are about $25 million that the priority list helps prioritize every year, although that is somewhat the bare minimum because we have great partners in our District 7 staff. Often other priorities align with their priorities and more projects move forward. So not only is there funding associated to these priorities, but there's power in partnerships. I wanted to try to tell the story on how your priorities are getting funded and being advanced. So one way that I tried to do that is illustrate the 113-ish projects that are currently on the priority list. So those are corresponded with each box. And then each color corresponds to the different TPO program areas. So historically, our top priority has been state of good repair and resilience in red. So you can see those are priorities 2 through 6. If they are colored in a more bold color, that means it was funded. So for example, 2 priorities from the 2023 priority list were HART's vehicle replacements and bus stop infrastructure. But some other things you might notice about this list. There are a lot of projects on here. There's a lot of non-bolded squares. So I think there are some opportunities to maybe improve that. At this point, about half of the projects on the priority list don't have an application. So that could be one area where we could possibly improve the list and also contribute to getting the right projects advanced. So the following slides will be 3 recommendations for your consideration on opportunities to streamline. So the first of which is separating the Transportation Improvement Program from the priority list for your distinct discussion and action. We've kind of bundled them all together under 3 different tables, but I think there is strength in calling them what they are. One is your priority list. Those are either unfunded or partially funded priorities, and then there's the Transportation Improvement Program. That is essentially DOT's work program, similar to your jurisdiction's capital improvements program. That is what's funded, and those are the projects that are advancing at various stages. While the priority list and the TIP are related, they are different. So the primary purpose of the priority list is to communicate the MPO's unfunded project priorities, and you all have full discretion over that. While the Transportation Improvement Program is the document that communicates the federally and state-funded transportation projects, and while you play an important role, it's more difficult for the board to change a lot of projects in there. The second proposed program changes is to shift the top 3 program categories based on the community input we heard in the 2025 long-range plan that was just adopted. So currently the top 3 priorities are state of good repair, followed by Vision Zero or safety, and then smart cities, which are signalization projects, intersection improvements. But during the community input, we heard that congestion was the top priority, and smart cities is the program area that best addresses that problem. So one idea is to reshuffle the top 3 priorities to having smart cities go first, state of good repair second, and then Vision Zero going third. And then the final proposed program changes is to set up essentially a list of business rules on how the priority list is developed. I mentioned that only about half of the projects on the list right now have an application, so kind of requiring a point of entry to even get on your priority list, that those projects are ready to advance if funding would be available in design or any other phase. And then the last suggestion is to develop what could be called something like a TPO-supported project delivery pathway. Our relationships with your local governments are so important, and with DOT and with HART. And one idea could be to help prioritize the planning and then implementation funding that is available. So we have a success story from our friends in Plant City, and I'll emphasize that the stars are really aligned on this one, and this is more the exception and not the rule, but it's a really compelling story. So in 2021, Plant City approached the TPO and said, hey, we need some help planning and doing a feasibility study for a Canal City Trail. So we partnered with them to lead that study. Then the next year, it was on your priority list. Fast forward to 2024, the project is now in the Transportation Improvement Program, and design will begin in 2025. So having this as be our goal and working with our partners and optimizing staff time, that we can really focus on opportunities to identify the problems and then work towards implementation and partnership. So we would love to hear your feedback on these proposed priority list program changes and solicit any other questions or feedback you might have.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. I really like these changes. I talked to Dr. Wong about them yesterday, and I just really love the idea that we have 113 things and some of them don't even have an application. It's just, I think it's a good way to really focus on which of these projects we can really accomplish. There's nothing wrong with having things that we would love to do, but focusing on what we can do, I think, makes the apple a little smaller and a little more manageable. So I appreciate your time and effort in working this out.
Thank you. Mayor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Elizabeth. Good presentation. I have some questions, or I think I have some concerns. Maybe they can be resolved by the questions. I just would like you to, this transportation priority process is mind-boggling already. And so I want to be careful that we're not making it increasingly mind-boggling. And so I'm a little confused still about the relationship between this proposed priority list and the prioritization that already occurs on the tip. And so we already talk about, table one is the coveted table one, where the projects are actually make table one, there are actually some funding. And then we wrangle about, is this number 12 or is this number 6, or is this, how long it takes to get to finally number 1. And so how are we creating yet another priority list, and what impact does this have on the tip and what we do in June with this wrangling that already goes on to try to get from table 3 to 2 to 1 and then climb up to the top of 1, and now we have another list. I just want to make sure that we're not taking something that in my mind is already overly bureaucratic and making it even more so.
Jenny, go ahead.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Mayor Ross. I would love to answer this question because, as you know, previously I was the TIP manager for a number of years, and I think the story is best communicated by explaining how we spend our staff time facilitating conversations between the local governments and FDOT. So to begin with, Table 2 is the list of priorities, and what we're asking is to just pull that out and make it its own separate document. The way that the process works is currently, every January, we'll meet with the local governments and ask them to review their existing priorities. So we'll go through Table 2 with them and say, each of these projects, are you still intending to move these forward? Their response may be, no, they're not really priorities of the city or the county anymore, so we can remove those. Others, they may say, yes, we would like to keep them on the list. And then the questions that follow are you going to submit an application to request the funding? Because once they're on the priority list, the next step is, can we game this to actually receive money in advance? In many cases, the answer is no, because over the past 5 to 6 years, there have been so many projects submitted that the local governments can't possibly dedicate staff time to pursuing each one of them. That is one of the main reasons why the list is so bloated now. And then as far as the TPO's role, once you all have adopted the priority list, when you approve Table 2, we work as the liaison between the local governments and DOT. We go straight down the priority list from 1 down to whenever the money runs out. And we'll say to DOT, all right, these are our top priorities. These will be ready to go. In which year can we assign funding to accomplish a phase of the project? There's a tremendous amount of staff time that's wasted if we have to go to the local governments to learn that their project is actually not ready to receive the money, because then we have to work with DOT to revisit the priority list and keep moving down. And so, talking about the purpose and need, the need is to eliminate the wasted staff time in reviewing 100 or so projects. And this leaning out will just make it more clear which projects are truly the priorities. Because we have 113, they're all important, no question about that, but kind of focusing in on the 10 or 12 that we can truly advance, I think would be really helpful to the TPO.
Okay, so all of this priority list would come from Table 2.
Correct.
So Table 2 of the TIP would essentially become, Table 2 would be this big, but we would take Table 2 and create this priority list from Table 2.
We would, so of the TIP document has Table 1, which are projects that have received some funding. Table 2 is the list of priorities, 1 through 113. Table 3 is the DOT work program. What we're asking is to pull Table 2 out, make it its own standalone list, have a process for you all to review those projects and work with us to rank them in order. Table 3, the DOT work program, that is your CIP, really. That is a list of the projects that have funding committed to them over the next 5 years.
Okay, so what would...
I hope that answers.
No, this is very helpful, thank you, and I hope I'm not boring everybody else with this. But, so what would the board action look like to take this priority list and say, okay, here's 100 projects? How would the board then, I'm assuming you would put them in some sensible order and then bring them to the board. Would that occur in conjunction with the annual TIP hearing, or would that be something that happens 4 times a year? I mean, how would that look?
Correct. We think that internally we'll have to accelerate this process. So rather than meeting with the local governments in January, we might touch base with them several times throughout the year to revisit their priorities. The project submission should occur November, December, like around this time of year moving forward. We will collect all those projects through that solicitation that we use, rank them all, present the ranked list to this board in either March or April. And then when we have the June TIP hearing, that will focus only on Table 3. There won't be any need to review the priorities because those will already have been established. Will only be, the June TIP hearing can be dedicated to taking a look at what's actually got funding committed to it in the DOT work program.
Okay, but the priority list will come to this board for approval? Okay, good. Well, now that I better understand it, I agree with Councilmember Hurtak that this sounds like an improvement, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Woolston.
Thanks. Could you just give a really high level overview of what smart cities is? I've received a lot of, I think, confusion from the public that they don't understand what that is exactly.
Yeah, Commissioner, happy to do that. So Smart Cities is inclusive of a lot of projects, but the sole focus is, or not sole, but the focus of that category are projects that can alleviate traffic congestion and enhance reliability. Some of the projects upon implementation which can accomplish that are traffic signals. We have funded a lot of those using Smart Cities. Intersection improvements like adding turn lanes, modifying curb geometry, transportation systems management, and someone help me out, what's the O?
Operations.
Operations, thank you. planner jargon, but that could involve synchronizing signals so that the traffic can flow in a more efficient manner. HART has used the Smart Cities project category to get transit signal priority funding so that the buses are outfitted with a module that will hold the green for them so that they can pass through intersections quicker. There's a lot. In general, I would say it's technology that can just improve reliability.
Thank you. Board Member Slater?
Thank you. I just want to kind of make one comment for the record. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to kind of note for the record that the Smart Cities initiatives also have a tremendous amount of safety benefits. So it's not like we're moving safety to the number 3 priority, because there's a lot of safety challenges that we need to address in our system. So I just want to kind of point that out for the record.
Okay. Oh, Councilman?
Yeah, just another comment of congratulations. I think this is what government should be doing. You know, taking what appears to be a hard to understand program that it's difficult. You know, a lot of it's in government ease. You know, the type of language, and bringing it down and making it easy to disseminate the correct information to the public so that they understand what we're doing and where this is coming from. So congratulations on doing exactly what I think the purpose of government is to help communicate to people what our goals and plans are. Thank you.
Okay, we all shared comments, so now do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second to approve the TIP amendment. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposes? That motion is carried.
Is that a TIP amendment? That was an information amendment.
It wasn't.
It was informational. So, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't a TIP amendment, so it doesn't require a roll call. That's just clarifying. Thank you.
Okay. Forgive me. Okay. You still up, Elizabeth?
I am for the next item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was part 2. Okay, I got it. Sorry about that.
All right. So there are 2 TIP amendments for your consideration today. The first of which is the route restoration planning grant. This was a discretionary grant that HART won through FTA to identify cost-effective and efficient service improvements aimed at routes that were negatively impacted by COVID-19. So they'll be using this money to essentially study what operational improvements can be found to go to try to have better frequency. And to illustrate that, here is an image of HART's system map from March of 2020. One thing that might jump out to you is there are a lot of blue lines, which means that there are 30-minute service, so at least 2 buses per hour on the majority of routes. But then when we fast forward to July of 2024, the predominant color here is purple. I believe about 2/3 of HART's routes come just once an hour, so there's been a significant decrease in frequency over the past few years. So what's changing in the TIP is that this project needs to be added in so that HART can capitalize on this federal funding and use that to continue to study their system. The second project is the HART Emergency Relief, Hurricane Ian. These funds will be used to reimburse HART for the operating costs that were incurred during Hurricane Ian in 2022, and the total federal award was $2.1 million. As you all know, HART plays an important role in responding in times of emergency, and for Hurricane Ian, about 25,000 trips were taken to get people to safety. So what's changing in the TIP? This project is also being added in so that HART can capitalize on these federal funds. As always, TPO staff followed our public participation requirements and posted notice in a variety of means. And the recommended action for you today is to approve by roll call vote these amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in favor of it. I don't want to hold it up, but I was just wondering if the board would be amenable to inviting HART to maybe come and do a presentation to us at some point in the near future. Particularly, I'm interested in the post-COVID continued reduction in the routes and the ridership, and maybe some of their ideas about why that is and where those people went, because it's been enough time now that they should be back. And so where did they find transportation alternatives? And I would like to, if it's okay with everybody, invite them to come and maybe discuss that with us. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair. I'll just say briefly that, we had to go through a state APAGA study that was required by the state at HART, and one of their findings, the consultant's findings, was that HART did return to pre-COVID ridership numbers, but I followed up, and then they confirmed that even though we reached those flat numbers, that per capita, we're still at a decrease because of our population increase. So this is something that we discussed during previous meetings, but I mean, they'll be able to come back in and elaborate more on that. So there's, other trials and tribulations.
A question for one of the HART board members. So the EN money, so that money was obviously already allocated and spent out of existing, this is just for my own curiosity. So what happens to this grant money, and how is it allocated, and how is it prioritized for HART spending now for FY25 and whatever the future is? Everybody know that maybe it's part of HART?
Councilman, we have a representative from HART in the audience, so
I didn't realize we had a HART person back there, sorry.
Yes, good morning. Jesus Perez Garcia, HART staff. That is a great question. It's like a reimbursement, because you're right, those funds were spent already 2 years ago. But how does it work in the balance sheet? Like, it goes in the exit or entry. I would need to look into that further.
And I think the nexus of my question is that we have a little bit of a controversy going on right now with the fare-free streetcar and the public hearings that are happening and so if there's an excess money, why are we cutting back service on the fare-free streetcar? I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah, we can look into that.
Okay, and then we'll look at HART coming to our next meeting. Add that to the agenda for next meeting. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Any? Roll
Madam
call.
Chair,
I'm
that
sorry.
one's a tip amendment, so
Yes,
it's got to be roll call.
Sorry, I'm into my elements this morning. Okay, roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Mayor Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Wastel?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen? Yes. Councilmember Clendenin?
Yes.
Councilmember Hurtak? Yes. Councilmember Maniscalco?
Yes.
School Board Member Rendon? Yes. Charles Klug?
Yes.
Gina Dew? Yes. Greg Slater?
Yes.
Planning Commissioner Joseph?
Yes.
The motion passes 12-0.
Okay, thank you. Now, Johnny, go ahead.
Yes, Board, I want to take a moment to pause and just clarify that I understand the previous motion correctly, and if anyone thinks that I have an incorrect interpretation, please correct me. So based on the motion to accept the recommendations on the changes to the list of priority projects, my interpretation is that the board is allowing staff to separate the priority list from the TIP, which is the FDOT work program, to revise the order of the program categories to make smart cities the top category, and third, establish some business rules for inclusion in the priority list. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we're right into status reports. Oh, board member. Good morning, Board Member Slater.
Dr. Wong reached out to me, several months back and really was interested in some of the work that we were doing around placemaking and some of the community development work that we were doing at the Expressway Authority. And so we've been trying to schedule this, and one of the things that we've done over the last few weeks is really talk about, well, I've been here almost 3 years, and I really have not kind of gotten in front of the board to talk about all that we have going. We have a new strategic plan. We have a large program. We have $1 billion+ worth of investment in transportation systems in this community. But we also are going down some different paths than we've gone previously. So I really wanted to kind of spend some time with the board and talk about that and talk about why and talk about all of the things that we are doing. So, as I stated earlier, the why behind this. We have a $1 billion+ program. Just a little background on the Expressway Authority. We are an independent special district up the state. We are 100% funded by the toll revenue that comes off the Leroy Selman Expressway. So we don't take any additional tax dollars. We are self-supportive. We are governed by a board of directors of 7 members. We have 4 members that are appointed by the governor. One of our local county commissioners, Commissioner Cepeda, serves on our board. Mayor Castor serves on our board, and then the local FDOT secretary, Secretary Gwynn, serves on our board. So we work through that and meet monthly. We have workshops, but also kind of monthly board meetings. So the why, I'm going to talk about really kind of 5 reasons why we are looking to go in some different directions, but also why we have this significant investment. First and foremost, we just hit our 60th anniversary, so transportation assets that were built back then, you build a new bridge today, you can probably get 100 years out of it. You couldn't get that. So, first and foremost, state of good repair. How do we rebuild the expressway, but also rebuild the expressway in a way that matches where we're headed as a community, not where we have been. Second, we need to make some safety improvements to the expressway. When it was built, standards were a little bit different. So you have areas where you have these short merge areas, those types of things, and we need to make better. But then third, the growth that we're seeing in this region is tremendous. We are, post-pandemic, we're about 19% over where we thought we were going to be pre-pandemic. The growth that we're seeing in this region is coming in a variety of different ways. The growth that we have seen post 2 hurricanes has been tremendous. We are outperforming kind of traffic models. I always say hypothetically, we hit a record on our expressway probably about 2 years ago. When we had the Taylor Swift concert come in town, we had a Lightning game and a Rays had a playoff game, and we blew our record out of the water. A year post that, we beat that record with no events happening in town. Just 2 weeks ago, we beat that by 10,000 transactions on the expressway. And that was, I had to Google what was going on, and then I had to show my age and Google who the concert was. Somebody named Sabrina Carpenter was playing at Amalie Arena, and so in theory, Sabrina Carpenter beat Taylor Swift in the traffic game. And so, but the other side of that is our entire playing field downtown has changed. You look at these graphics, where it was 2012 and 2022, we were an expressway that was kind of going through downtown. We had some exit ramps and some entrance ramps that were in areas where there wasn't a whole lot of other things going on. And then the whole playing field around us changed. Development around Water Street, the density around the expressway, the community development around the expressway caused us to really rethink how we're doing and where we're getting people on, where we're getting people off. I mean, we talked about smart cities and some of the safety improvements that come with that. We're faced with the situation where we now have these high-speed expressway ramps that are feeding into really dense urban environments. So we have to rethink how we're building technology into our system to slow that traffic down before it gets into that environment, because the priorities from a transportation perspective are different. But as we rebuild the expressway, we wanted to do it in a way where we're kind of building on our wins. The last successful project we had was the Selman West extension over Gandy Boulevard. That project essentially pulled 50% of the traffic off of Gandy Boulevard, giving that roadway back to those businesses, relieving some of that congestion, but also eliminating 30 to 40% of the crashes that were happening on that corridor, because many of them were congestion related. We wanted to lean in a little bit more on our community development project. Back behind our offices on Channel Side, we have a dog park. I think it's the only dog park in the city that is shaded, so it's always very busy. And so we really feel like that's a great asset for our community. And that dog park is named after Deputy Kotfila. And if you don't know that story, the deputy put himself between a wrong-way driver and a family and was killed, and had a love for dogs, and so we built that dog park and dedicated it to him. And we want to do more and more of those types of projects. And then the connected vehicle pilot. So about 6 years ago, THEA was designated by USDOT as a pilot site for connected and autonomous vehicle technology. We had auto manufacturers in place, testing technology, very, very successful project. I would argue that we were one of the only ones that were designated that actually did what we said we were going to do, and we're really building in that technology. We have a project today, the I-4 Frame project with FDOT, where we're building that connected vehicle technology between Tampa and Orlando and trying to connect those dots so that as that technology advances, we can really be there to take advantage of it. You know, very quickly, before I go into some of our placemaking work, I want to talk about the amount of projects that we have. You know, the first project that we have that's going to hit the street, between $300 to $400 million investment on the south side of the expressway. Several years ago, we built a safety project where we essentially built a median barrier between the Hillsborough River Bridge and Gandy Boulevard. So a lot of that pavement was out there. We want to take advantage of that. We've got a number of bridge decks that we need to replace. And so we're going to be out on the street within the next 30 days with a $300 to $400 million investment in the southern part of the Selman Expressway, where we're going to replace those bridge decks. On the inside where that pavement is, we're going to add another lane in each direction. We're going to keep the outer footprint, but extend some of those merge areas, reconfigure some of those ramps and how they land into some of those residential areas. And then we're, from a community standpoint, carry some of that success that we have and that, you know, that beautiful blue and white bridge that we have over Gandy Boulevard, carry that through the community all the way through to the Hillsborough River Bridge. We are also going to build noise walls through the entire course of the project to kind of build those walls between the residential areas and that rail line that's there and some of those pieces. So really trying to build that out. The other thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, is we're looking at the expressway, not only on the expressway, but on, around, and going into the expressway. So we're making sure that we're building pedestrian infrastructure on those underpasses underneath, creating safe environments for people to kind of go to and from, and kind of redeveloping a lot of those systems underneath. You know, South Tampa in particular has a tremendous amount of young kids that walk to school, and we want to be able to support that and have that infrastructure in place so they don't have to feel like they're kind of walking in the dirt or really walking in the street to get there. East Selman, so same type of a project. We have a project from about 22nd Street all the way out to Brandon, where we're just to the end of our planning process where we're going to add another lane in each direction on the inside as well. We had a project that just opened up about a year ago where we added some new slip ramps. That bought us about 10 years of growth because we were able to balance the traffic between the reversible and the local lanes underneath. That project has won a number of awards. I just went to Cleveland and it was awarded a total excellence. So we're one of 6 projects nationwide that were awarded. And it goes to show you that a really, really simple project can make a big impact. The day we opened that project, we had 500 less cars downtown. So 500 less cars that needed to come to the end of the reversible and traverse downtown to get back on the expressway through South Tampa. So really, really helpful. Whiting Street, great example of the downtown playing field change. So when there's a Lightning game or when there's a big event at Amalie Arena, Tampa PD will come in and turn off ramp 6B, put cones across it. So what that does is that creates a challenge where people are looking to get off. So they can either get off before and then go across the Brorain Bridge. They can go all the way past and they can go to Ybor to 22nd and double back, or they can go around the loop ramp and then they get kind of stuck in that event traffic a little bit. So we have these backups during those events coming into town in the evening. You know, it's a sign of growth, but it's also a sign of prosperity. You know, we have a lot of people coming into downtown at night. So what the Whiting project is going to do is it's going to just permanently eliminate that spur ramp that goes into Amalie Arena. We're going to create a new ramp that comes down at Whiting Street, essentially where the employee garage and the parking garage is for Amalie Arena, back behind Embark Collective, and then extend that kind of merge area on Florida. That new ramp will then connect Whiting Street all the way through to Meridian and then be in conjunction creating more east-west connections. The SPP through their Water Street project is punching through Walton and Findlay. Then we'll have Whiting come through 3 more east-west connections, and that project is going to be a multimodal project connecting bike infrastructure to our greenway, sidewalk infrastructure, and then serving as a pair to Broraine. So if you think about Broraine, that's got 2 lanes going to the expressway. Whiting is going to have 2 lanes kind of going away from the expressway, creating this interconnected network. That new ramp handles 100% of event and game day traffic coming into Tampa in the evening, puts them down into the city where they can just park and don't have to kind of navigate the game day traffic, and be able to kind of get them into downtown and then walk or take a scooter or bike wherever they need to go and go to their event. That's a project that is probably second in our queue right now. Downtown viaduct and ramps, as we get to those projects and looking at our ramps, the next focus is probably that Broraine ramp. If you come across Morgan Street, it's got that left. The city wants to two-way Broraine a little bit. We can't do that with a left on ramp. Creates a safety challenge, so we're trying to rethink that one as well. We've got a project, which is our first expansion project in many, many years. We're in the planning process, early planning process, on really doing what we did over Gandy Boulevard down the median of 301. We're working very closely with Florida Turnpike on that, very closely with FDOT on that one. The early projections on the modeling are showing a tremendous amount of traffic relief, not only on 301, but on 75, to manage some of that growth that we're seeing in South County. And create a better trip into downtown. One of the things that we see, we have a tremendous amount of service members from MacDill that live in South County and have to ride that whole expressway. So this will create a different option for them, and then really kind of create some different functions with some redundancy on the system. But early project development, a tremendous amount of support. We did some community surveys on that. We were seeing 95, 96% support on that project. But still very, very early, but moving forward as a real option. Our Greenway Master Plan, that's really the first kind of touch you'll see on some of our placemaking and our underpass activities. We want to really create some space. We have a lot of parts of our city where we have this elevated expressway, and there's just kind of dead space underneath. Well, those dead space, the life is under the expressway. Let's activate that space a little bit. Our connected vehicle program, just by way of an example, along with our wrong-way driving program, we're implementing some wrong-way driving technology that will have sensors if someone kind of enters the wrong way on one of our ramps, that will send that back to our traffic management center to be able to notify so that we know when that's happening and be able to safely make a choice there. And then our connected vehicle technology. We're leaning in on connected vehicle, very much like the smart cities prioritization, where we're looking at technology today where we're going to have detection on the crosswalks at the bottom of our ramps. And when there are pedestrians active in those crosswalks, it'll have a sign at the top of the expressway ramp that kind of lights up, that tells the driver, hey, you're entering into a different environment. Slow down a little bit as you're entering into that part of the city, to let them know that there are pedestrians present before they even are able to see them. A little bit of our underpass work and our placemaking work. So as part of our South Selman capacity project, we had a lot of space under the expressway around Bay to Bay. And so we've been working with the community. We need to use a lot of that space for storage during construction. So really, as an investment post-construction, we're going to go in there. We're going to build another dog park. We have a recreation space area. We're looking at some areas where you can do things like food, local farmers markets and active meetings, those types of things, right in South Tampa, under Bay to Bay, utilizing all that space as construction is done. But we're also looking at all the pedestrian infrastructure on all 14 of those underpasses, from Gandy all the way into the Hillsborough River Bridge, to be able to create that envelope of real transportation system. Our Greenway Master Plan, if you're not familiar with our Greenway, the Leroy Selman Greenway is a 1.9 million or 1.9 mile dedicated path under the expressway. In the shade, you learn very quickly. I know I learned very quickly when I moved to Florida that shade is a commodity, so take advantage of it. But really is a really well-used piece there. So we wanted to activate that a little bit more. We wanted to take what we were doing and build some investment into it. Because in many ways, you have communities under and around the expressway, and we can use that space to connect those communities and really build as part of it in conjunction with what's happening around with some of the private development, whether it's SPP or whether it's Gasworks over in Ybor City or even Channel Side. But we also think there's a lot of connection there. So we went through and created 5 zones on our Greenway that we're really excited about. plazas, active recreation, really good landscape and vegetation, but passages, but also parking and those types of things that we can really activate. And so, looking at this first one, Fry Park. So Fry Park is over off the Hillsborough River Bridge, really great example of a project that can not only activate that space and create some community spaces, but connect our greenway to the Riverwalk. So you go through there, connect that seamlessly through that pedestrian infrastructure and really create a community amenity. I've been working really closely over the years with the city of Tampa and their Recreation and Parks Department. When Sharisha was there, we used to talk about, I can build them and then I can't manage a park, but they can manage a park. They're really good at it. But we can kind of make that investment and then kind of turn it over and work through that. That's what we have with our dog park. Getting into the second one, this is our pedestrian passage, Central Promenade, really in that area, kind of just beyond the Hillsborough River Bridge, creating places for kind of kids to get in there and play and active recreation areas, but also some education features. One of the things we found throughout the city was, every neighborhood, every section is a little bit different. We can use these opportunities to educate and talk about, things like mobility hubs, but talk about some of the history in the community. Zone 3 is just really on the landscaping side. This is over by like Embark Collective and some of those areas. I met with them. It's funny what they were sharing was that sometimes they just need some spaces to get out and walk, walk and think. So kind of creating some spaces in the city for them to really get out and see what's happening. Our 12th Street Park is one that we're really excited about. This is really behind Channelside, really, really long bridge spans where they have open spaces. They have the new Gold's Gym over at Gasworks. We have a partnership with Tampa General Hospital where we're integrating some outdoor exercise equipment like they did on Bayshore, creating some open spaces for recreation, but really taking that beyond what they're doing, what the developing community is doing on the Ybor Harbor waterfront and Gasworks, and creating that seamless experience of a community across towards Adamo and then into Ybor City, but also reimagining that stormwater pond that we have there, creating more of an open space to really activate it a little bit. And then this is the Ybor Channel and the promenade, those big reversible express lane long spaces where we just want to create more placemaking. We're working with USF. They have a really great public art department on how you can build public art into what you're doing in a very functional way, collaborative spaces, meeting places, those types of things. But over by USF Health, for instance, that section, we're looking at outdoor meeting spaces where we can put AV equipment in, and you can go out and have a community meeting outside, or you can go out and gather and do some different things. But ultimately, we want to take the space under the expressway and just activate it for the community and create a space where we're part of that community. On top of that, I talked a little bit about our vehicle-to-everything technology. We're really integrating and focused on building tomorrow's expressway. So that technology is advancing more and more every year, and we want to be able to make sure that we can get every possible safety advantage that's coming from that technology. This is a little bit on our wrong-way driving countermeasures. So we have these systems in place now where if someone enters one of our ramps, we're just going to be starting to install those over the next 6 months. We're going to have that detection. Lights will come on, be able to notify, make the roadway a little bit smarter, a little bit more adaptable. And then finally, our real estate analysis. So we are on the street right now, so I can't get into too much detail with an RFI, reaching out to the development community. So I don't have the authority to be a developer, but we can have partnerships for development, very much like TPA did with Sky Center, just find the right partner. But we owned 11 acres in the downtown core next to the old Ardent Mills flour mill. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were going to do something with that property in partnership that was really focused on community enhancement. And so we did a board workshop on it. We got everything from public spaces to, hey, that's a property that can be the real glue between Gasworks and Water Street and Channelside, mobility hubs and community investment. So, we put all of our thoughts together from that workshop and put it out to the community for an RFI and said, okay, development community, if this were able to hit the market for a partnership, what kind of partnership structures do you like? And two, what would be your vision? So we're really hopeful over the holidays we're going to start to get some feedback on that and then come back around to really make a significant investment in partnership in that property. And then, our strategic plan, so we spent some time and really redid our strategic plan, really rethought what we were trying to achieve as an organization. And when the board hired me, not quite 3 years ago, what I was hearing from every one of our board members is, we just think we can be more. And so we wanted to diversify a little bit. We wanted to get in, we're always going to have our statutory authority, and we are an expressway, but that doesn't mean we can't make a more significant investment and a more significant impact into this community. So we wanted to restructure what we were doing organizationally, restructure the lens in which we were making our decisions. So, we restructured that into 4 different areas. One is, we want to deliver best in class. We want to have 100% customer impact. We want to operate like a business, and we want to do it really, really smartly and really do it in a transparent way. We want to invest in this community. We invest 100% of the toll dollars that come off the San Juan Expressway directly back into this community. They don't go anywhere else. We want to use data and technology to drive our decisions. We were just awarded an award that I was really proud of for transparency in our financial reporting. A national award for transparency in our financial reporting, because people, they pay those tolls. They want to know where their money goes. And, so we made a significant effort to lay a report out for our annual report that said, you can read this and you're not going to get confused. It's not a report that just accountants can understand or auditors can understand. It's a report that any of our customers can understand. And then, finally, we wanted to transform that next generation system and an agency that is not only serving this community, but an agency that is part of this community. And our road ahead is really about kind of where we're headed as an organization. We were really careful not to make sure that we were not making an investment based on where Tampa was. We need to make our investments on where Tampa is going, not just on the expressway, that door to door. I want to know where our customers are coming from and where they're going to. We're just one part of their journey, but that doesn't mean we can't think and work as a team and then go from that transaction perspective to that customer perspective, and then really go from serving a community to being integrated into that community. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
What an excellent presentation, and thank you, Councilman Clendenin.
Wow. I just want to let you know that when you decide to pivot from this career and you decide to run for office, I want to manage your campaign. So you're the only person I know that can make roads sound sexy. What a tremendous briefing. I was familiar with most of the projects that you discussed, and I really applaud yourself as the director and the Expressway Authority for your vision for not just your organization, but for the city as a whole and the commitment to the city of Tampa. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate the fact that you're looking to activate these spaces. Many years ago, I had a privilege of attending a meeting at the invitation of Taiwan in Taipei, and how they activated underneath their expressways. They had some really incredible opportunities there. And I think encouraging entrepreneurship and having some opportunities for, like they had, garden centers and seasonal garden centers and other types of spaces where people could, have these types of things that would benefit the community and also create some small business opportunities, I think is really important. I also appreciate, on behalf of the city of Tampa, I never hear anything other than good things from staff and from the mayor and all the way down about how well you're working with the city of Tampa and trying to accomplish things. The convention center, with goals and achieve things that we're trying to accomplish there. So thank you, again, on behalf of the city of Tampa, thank you. Question for you, because one of the challenges we have in the city of Tampa is that you hit it, which sparked my thought, the MacDill Air Force Base personnel that, they transition through the city of Tampa to get to where they're going. And we have a lot of congestion issues on several of our major roadways because of that. It seems like the gap in being able to get them off of the residential roads and even the FDOT roads is if we were able to get a spur coming off of the cross down to the gates of McDill. Has that ever been pursued? Have you all studied that as far as the demand and whether it was viable?
It's been brought up a few times. It's been studied a little bit. I think the space is probably the challenge there. You know, there's not much median kind of when you go down McDill. You know, we're looking at some different kind of demand models there. You know, what's interesting is, you know, earlier in the presentation, I said we were about 19 to 20% over where we were projecting pre-pandemic. The interesting thing I'm finding is almost all of that is exclusively in the middle of the day. So we're seeing a lot of growth in people that, you know, hypothetically maybe came here because they could live anywhere, kind of work anywhere, and the telecommuting workforce is kind of travel a little bit during the day. So, you know, the good thing is it doesn't add to the peak. But we're looking at a number of kind of improvements to try and be a little bit more customer focused with the base. So I'm actually working to get some time with the new base commander because we're finding their travel patterns are a little bit different. You know, those service members are not coming to the base every day anymore. You know, they may be 2 days a week or 3 days a week. So we're looking at some ways that not only we can provide some of those improvements, but also ways that we can make it a little bit more affordable for those service members.
It would fool me based on the amount of congestion we see on Del Mabry and Bayshore Boulevard and West Shore Boulevard, but that they're not coming and going all day long. Plus the amount of development that has occurred in that southern part of the peninsula. Absolutely. That, you know, being able to get people to and from there. And it was really highlighted during these weather events, how much congestion there was coming and going from that base. And now with reconstruction and all the contractors that are coming and going down there, it's quite thick. So I think that's something that, as far as that long, like where we're going, I mean, I don't believe that we have a commitment of keeping McDill Air Force Base in the city of Tampa, and I think we'll continue to have that because of the significant economic impact. Yeah. And I think having this type of an ability to transition people from that base to where they want to go in a quickly and affordable way, I think is an important thing to start looking at. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing I'll add is, you know, we work really closely with FDOT because when we can implement a project through our toll revenue and the bonding structure and debt structure that we have, it gives them the ability to free some money up to do some other things. So we're always working, you know, we're working with the city on a variety of things right now, you know, trying to restructure some ramps and rethink this and rethink that. But really, ultimately, we're all working as a team right now.
Well, we're going to need you to write a book so we can share it with other government agencies on how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Worcester.
Thank you, and I will agree. You've clearly been intentionally thoughtful and holistic in your approach to the community. I'm a tech guy. I read your report before you presented it, and you had the sensors that are in the road. You can call it tinfoil hat, but I believe that the future of public transit is largely going to be autonomous. Have you ever seen anything, and I know that you probably do a lot of continuing education, you go to different forums. Will that type of technology be able to be implanted into roads to help transmit to the autonomous vehicles? Yeah, could you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to probably go down a couple of really kind of nerdy rabbit holes, but you know, so when it comes to connected vehicle technology, there are really kind of three pieces there. There's V2V, which is vehicle to vehicle. So vehicles communicating with other vehicles, you know, from a safety perspective, taking the human error out of the equation, which can really, really save lives. Then there is kind of vehicle to infrastructure. That's the V to I world. So that is my vehicle or your vehicle communicating with that signal system or the roadside piece that is really collecting the data. And then there's what's called V to X, so vehicle to everything. So that's vehicle to a pedestrian or vehicle to a bicycle or vehicle to a scooter. You know, years ago, they couldn't get that off the ground because the GPS wasn't great on the phones, but as that's improving, the opportunities to create a safer environment through that type of technology is really taking off. I had a meeting yesterday with a company that kind of is implementing some of the transition plan. And essentially what they're pitching, which I really believe in, is the transition to, you know, you take something like the expressway where you have one lane that's dedicated to fully autonomous vehicles and then transit vehicles. And those vehicles are then communicating to cars that are probably purchased today and creating a better environment. The freight world, I think, is going to go ahead of many because it's probably more money related than others. But I've been involved with a number of projects over the years where, you know, you have truck platooning. You know, when I worked in Maryland, we did a lot of work with Aberdeen Proving Ground with some of the leader-follower technology they have in the military. in being able to platoon and connect vehicles. Think about a truck going 75 miles an hour that's probably 2 inches apart, but just connected electronically to build the efficiencies and maximize the efficiencies of the system. But that technology is out there today. But you asked earlier about some of the smart cities type things. I'll give you a great example of something that we're working on. So 50% of all congestion nationwide is caused by a temporary disruption in traffic. So that's your flat tire, that's your, somebody tapping the brakes. The other 50% is volume over capacity. It's more traffic volume than the roadway was designed for to handle. But for every minute of congestion, it takes about 2 to 3 minutes to recover from that. So if you've ever sat in traffic and got to the front and there's nothing there, you're sitting in recovery congestion. And so the theory is if you can prevent the traffic from breaking, the congestion from starting, then you can prevent those 2 to 3 minutes of recovery time. So our system backs up every day or every time there's a lightning game, right? So hypothetically, we could put sensors in ours, and this is what we're working on today, sensors in our system to find the trigger point. Okay, where's the volume trigger point? Is it where the west extension hits the main line of the expressway? When those volumes hit a certain point, then what I can do is, because I'll know from a pattern perspective where the vehicles are getting off and where they're going, then I can communicate through that sensor with the signal systems that are 2 and 3 off of our ramp. Add more green time, let it flush through, those types of things. And then utilize things like AI to be able to make the system more adaptable. So you got an evacuation, it'll know I need more green times. Take away some of that kind of hard signal type work that was there in the past to make your system smarter so that when there is a change in travel pattern or influx from a crash or something like that, the system can not only adapt, but the whole system around it can adapt and create a safer environment because it's more efficient. Because when people get stuck in traffic, I don't know how else to say it, they do dumb things, right? So, there are safety issues with congestion and people get frustrated and then it creates other safety issues. So if we can solve the congestion challenge or make it better, then inherently we're going to make it a little safer at the same time.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you very much. Just very briefly, I really welcome the fact that you show this emphasis on the on and off ramps and the bridges throughout the whole Selman Expressway. When I was on City Council and even now on the County Commission, many of those off ramps and bridges are in my district. And traditionally, they've always looked very bad and also been very unsafe and unkempt. And over time, when you all, and I mean the Expressway Authority, has actually given attention to a particular overpass or ramp, they improve markedly. They're painted, they're landscaped, they're safer, they really look great. I can think of different ones. My question though is, I always recall that the big stumbling block in getting this done was who was going to maintain it after the work was done. Yeah. So once you are finished fixing up particularly the overpasses, and they're landscaped and they're painted and the sidewalks are done, who maintains it going forward?
Today there's a kind of variety of places, and one of the things that I have a different perspective on that. So my answer is we will. And so the challenge that we have had over the years is sometimes you have a partnership. So maybe there's a community group that will come in and work with you on the landscaping, but those kind of fizzle out over the years. And then it starts to, in my mind, it reflects bad on us if it looks like it's a part of our system that's not being maintained. So we've kind of gone back with the same challenge with the dog park. So it was, it was, as budgets change, you can't kind of maintain it to a certain extent, but we're taking on that. The one thing that we can't do is operate a park, right? So, I can't book time for recreational fields and those types of things. But ultimately, we want our maintenance envelope to be the envelope around the expressway. So if it's going under, if it's going around, those types of things, we want to take that envelope and say that if we're going to build it, we're going to maintain it. We might need some help on the operating side, but we are going to take that on.
Well, and I think passive parks are very welcome too. I don't think they have to necessarily be programmed. And, there's been so much investment in some of these corridors, and the one missing piece sometimes is the underpass or the intersection improvements or the condition of the sidewalk or the landscaping. And so I hope that you'll find a willing partner with the local governments, because these are huge improvements when they're made, and they benefit a huge number of people that appreciate them. So
absolutely.
I definitely applaud the fact that you are focusing on this, because I think people really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and thank you. And the only other thing I'll add is, don't lose sight of the private development community as well. And so whether it's what's happening on Water Street or whether it's what's happening in Gasworks, ultimately, you want that to...
Or Bay to Bay.
Or Bay to Bay to seamlessly run. And so, working closely with them, they have an interest in making sure that area stays neat and tidy and clean and well-maintained. So, working in conjunction with them, ultimately, as we're running as a private business, really, in many models, we want to do it as efficiently as possible. So if it's more efficient and more cost-effective for us to do it, then we'll do it. If it's more effective for them to do it, we'll find a partnership there. But really, kind of all working as a team as we build this out and really building it as part of our contracts. I'll give you a great example. We are going to the board this month with new asset maintenance contracts. So our asset maintenance contracts have performance measures in them that says, okay, you've got these mode areas have to be a certain performance, these are line striping, all of that. The old contracts did not include the underpasses, the new contracts do. So we have a maintenance contractor that's now responsible, once the board approves that this month, that their new contractor will then be responsible for going in and making sure the underpasses are clean.
Okay. Board Member Clue.
Yeah, just a few comments here, and I also want to echo what Commissioner Cohen's comments about what you've done with the expressway, and also go back to to your predecessors as well, about building beautiful roads and maintaining beautiful roads. And that was a big mantra of Pat McHugh, and as far as autonomous vehicles with Joe Wagner. But that original expressway, if you recall, was called the South Tampa Crosstown Expressway. It went from downtown down to Gandy, Dale Mabry, following the railroad tracks. And so they got right away from CSX, or CSX's predecessor. That's why it is the way it is, right along the railroad tracks. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of room for on-ramps and off-ramps, like a Bay to Bay and the one downtown. So I really appreciate you fixing those and trying to do that. Going back to the Pat McHugh days when we built the reversible lanes, it wasn't just a panel, astrogirder panel deck type project. It was a precast segmental bridge like the Skyway Bridge, that everyone sees as iconic here in Tampa. So you're trying to build beautiful bridges. You light the bridges up. You have beautiful underpasses. Meridian used to be one of the ugliest roads in Tampa. You took that over and made that into a beautiful road. And so I just want to commend all the things you've done, working with the community, your vision, to make sure that we don't have just plain old roads. We have beautiful roads that the public can take, appreciate, well lit. And I think it's a real asset to our community.
I've challenged the team a little bit. I said, the challenge is when we have Monday Night Football come in town, I want them to show one of our bridges and not the Skyway.
Yeah. Okay, Board Member Joseph.
Hi, Mr. Slater. I just wanted to commend you, echo everything everyone said, and I would like to ask you in my capacity as Planning Commission Chair to also possibly get with Melissa Zornita and come and do this presentation for our Planning Commission Board, because I think there's a lot of pertinent information we could get out of this.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Okay, one more.
Yeah, personal point of privilege. Going westbound off the crosstown, getting off at Boreen, signage saying that there is a special event and traffic is diverted. Because right now, the line of sight, you can't tell when Tampa PD has diverted traffic and you get thrown into northern downtown instead of being able to transition. So if there's a way of getting, and that ends up creating, you see people doing stupid things, I may be one of them, doing U-turns to get back on track and things. So if there was some notification so people could continue down to Hyde Park, to get off instead of getting downtown where they would normally get off if there was some kind of notification that there was a modification happening off the ramp.
Absolutely. In fact, we have a meeting we're working to set up right now with Tampa PD to kind of get a little bit more, kind of understand the logic. Because if we have the logic on some of the closures, we can put it into our one network system. And if you put it in the one network system, then the navigation apps will adjust as well. So just trying to provide that, but we're trying to solve that challenge right now too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Okay, we'll move right along to Executive Director's Report. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Board. I will be brief. So December 3rd, Tuesday in the morning, we'll have our TPO special board meeting. We'll return to you with the merger study scope of work. We've received feedback from each of you, and the board has discussed this. We've worked to address all those comments, so we'll return with what we believe to be the final version, and we'll also present a tentative schedule of the milestones that we'll work through as we continue the exploration. I just learned this morning that I was able to get on the Tampa City Council agenda for December 5th. The TMA requested that I speak with them, and my intention is to recap some of the progress that has been made on the merger exploration thus far, and really kind of put the ball in the City Council's court and solicit their feedback on what information they would like for us to include so that they can make an informed decision when the time comes. That Friday, December 6th, we'll have the TMA SCTPA meeting. We'll, of course, report to that group any actions that this board takes with respect to the merger study. And then the following week, we have our regular meeting on December 11th. The December meeting will cover the election of officers for this board, as well as committee assignments for 2025. And I want to end on some good news that didn't make its way into the agenda in time, but we learned last week that Hillsborough County won $3 million to implement a smart traffic network on 30 miles of arterial roads. You saw that Elizabeth's presentation included a real success story of how our work can provide a pathway to project development and completion. This is another really good example. It took a different pathway because it didn't go through the tip, but back in 2020, we worked with each of the local governments to create the TPO's first Smart Cities Master Plan, first one for the region, as a matter of fact. As soon as we completed it, we worked with Hillsborough County to develop a grant application for this project. They won, and they're receiving the money this year. So we're looking forward to that tip amendment to allow them to receive the money and move that project forward. I think that's a really good example of how the TPO can add value. And that's it for me, unless you all have any questions.
Really? None? Okay. Any old business? Go ahead.
Oh, no, just new business. I want to make a comment. I know that our long-range transportation plan public hearing was postponed for 2 weeks, and unfortunately, a lot of our staff and our board members were unable to attend the 42nd annual design and awards and planning and design awards. It was held that same day on October 30th. So I just want to recognize those award winners, and the parties got special recognition. Just want to say, good shout out to all those people who did receive those awards that night. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other old business? Yes?
New business. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, you moving me to new business?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're at new business now. New business.
So last meeting, I dialed in electronically, and there was some confusion about rights and responsibilities of members capable of making motions and votes. I understand based on subsequent to that there's a lack of provisions for that in the bylaws. And I know there's some confusion because in the information that's disseminated, it gives us an opportunity to participate virtually. Well, that information that really doesn't exist because it's not in the bylaws. Robert's Rules of Order in 2020, I believe, was amended to provide organizations with opportunities to incorporate into bylaws the ability to have virtual participation in meetings, but it has to be incorporated into the bylaws, which I just assumed. And again, I never got a copy. That's also something, I'll move on to that second. So I would like that the TPO staff come back to this organization with proposed bylaws changes that would clarify the rights and responsibilities of voting members who dial in virtually to meetings. And I'd reference Robert's Rules that was revised in 2020. I think the next thing is also when new members come on. I've been in about a year, and I was not privy to, I did not have copies of the bylaws, so I think we need to have a package so when new members come on board that we have copies of bylaws that are disseminated so people understand what the rules and responsibilities. So one thing I don't want to be caught on is not understanding what the rules and responsibilities are, because as a former air traffic controller, I'm a black and white guy. I want to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I don't ever want to be surprised. I want to be able to conform and make sure that it's right. So, because I know this virtual participation thing is there's really no such thing as you're half in and you're half out, or you're half a member, you're not a member. You're either are or you're not. So we either have virtual participation or we don't. So I think that's part of it. I think that needs to be clarified. And I'd appreciate if TPO staff would come back to this board and with the proposals to at least clarify that so that there's no misunderstanding in the future.
Okay. Legal counsel.
Yes, thank you. So certainly we can come back with bylaws that sort of formalizes the virtual participation possibility. I would just point out that Robert's Rules isn't the controlling issue here. It really is the Sunshine Law. So while the government of the Sunshine Law does not have any case law regarding this issue, there is quite a solid amount of Attorney General opinion on this. And you have to kind of separate out what happened during COVID, because there was an executive order at that time from the governor that very much opened up virtual participation during COVID. That has since expired, and now we're back to what has been in place for a long time. The most utilized AG opinion on this is from 2003, although it's consistent with some previous ones. In that instance, it essentially says as long as there is a physical quorum of a board present, that a member can participate. And participate is, voting, essentially. I mean, essentially, if someone a board member attends virtually, but they're just observing and watching and potentially commenting, as long as they're not voting, that's not the same thing. But to participate in terms of taking part in votes, making motions, there has to be what's called extraordinary circumstances. There's abundance of AG opinion on this about illness, medical issues. That's not part of the opinion. I'm not sure how that's ever come up before. But extraordinary circumstances, other than the fact that it includes medical issues, it's obviously something that can be interpreted. The 03 opinion gets referenced most often because the local government in that case was asking if a member can participate virtually because of scheduling conflicts. The AG sort of punts on that by stating that whether a scheduling conflict is an extraordinary circumstance is up to the good judgment of the board. So essentially allowing the board to make a determination on that matter. I will tell you that prior to COVID, the issue came up and I'm saying this because I started this in 14, and I remember going back, some members will remember the tip hearing that went until 2:30 in the morning. We had at that time a member, I think it was Frank Chalura, who was at the time mayor of Temple Terrace. He had a city council budget meeting, annual budget meeting, on the same date as the tip hearing. He communicated with the CPO director at that time, explained the reasoning, and the rationale was this was an extraordinary circumstance. He had to conduct business of both of these functions at the same time, and he did participate. I think it was just by speakerphone. Since that time, it's a very unusual circumstance. That said, and you did share with me the Tampa City Council rules on this, took a look at them. They are consistent with that AG opinion. They don't make any mention of scheduling conflicts. It really focuses on medical issues, but it does leave to the body itself to determine if it qualifies as an extraordinary circumstance. So I realize I went on for a bit, but I know there may be some questions, so I just wanted to put all the information out there I could.
Yeah, my point is this is just that we have consistency. I mean, I believe that anybody who issues rules, rules are rules. whether you agree with them or not, but everybody can follow the rules if it's clearly disseminated and everybody has a clear understanding of what those rules are. So my whole goal in this is to make sure that we have our bylaws, that the bylaws are disseminated and everybody understands the rules. We're all playing from the same playbook. That's my 100% of my objective. It doesn't matter what the rules are, just as long as they're consistent, we're all playing by the same ones.
Commissioner Coyne.
And Councilman Clendenin, I couldn't agree with you more. And my understanding, and it's consistent with what you just said, is every board I sit on makes up their own policy related to this topic. And they're sometimes a little bit different. Some are a little bit more strict about it. Some want to make it easier for people to participate remotely. Others want to make it more difficult. And I think it's within our purview to do either. But to Councilman Clendenin's point, we ought to be clear about what our policy is, and we ought to make sure it represents a majority of the board's view. Regardless of where we come out, we can say no remote participation, or we can say remote participation under the following circumstances, whatever, as long as we agree on it and we all understand, I think, what it is, right? Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you.